Have you ever sat in that heavy silence at a family dinner? We retell those moments honest every day, sometimes controversial. Every story is a mirror. Subscribe, join the conversation, and maybe find a little healing. Rain pressed against the windows in a steady sheet when I shouldered the door open. The lock clicked, then my keyring slipped from my palm and chimed into the blue ceramic bowl by the entry. Wet wool, cold air, the faint lemon of the wood cleaner I used that morning. I toed off my soaked sneakers and felt the chill of the hardwood climb into my arches. Outside, a garbage truck beeped in slow bursts down the hill toward the sound, beep, pause, beep, the noise bouncing off the damp street. On the porch, the hydrangea sagged under the rain, its blooms washed to a tired gray blue. When the hydrangea changes, everyone thinks it is the weather. It is the soil. I balanced a paper bag of groceries against my hip and walked past the fogged pane by the stairs. With my sleeve, I wiped a small clear circle on the glass. A glimmer of streetlight bled through and smeared back to blur. I carried the bags down the hallway past the family photos in their frames. Michael in Little League with a cap too big for his head. Michael at 16 on the same couch with his face buried in a pillow after a girl broke his heart. Michael at 22 in a suit, smiling at a future I believed in. Evelyn, Bree said from the living room. She did not call me Mom. She never had. She stood by the coffee table with her arms folded and her weight cocked to one hip. An iPad lay face up beside a scented candle. Michael sat on the couch, shoulders slumped, his thumbs skating over his phone as if there were a race he might lose. I brought salmon, I said. They had a good deal at Safeway. Bree smiled in a way that did not touch her eyes. We need to talk. I put the bags on the table I bought with my first cleaning paycheck. The legs wobbled a little, they always had. I steadied the bag with my palm and felt the cold sweat blooms on the paper where rain had soaked in. Talk, I said. Bree tapped the iPad. Color bars, bills, a line graph. Structure, she said. This house needs it. Boundaries. We cannot keep doing this thing where you just come and go. It throws everything off. In my house, I said. Michael's eyes flicked up, then away. Bree's not wrong, Mom. The word landed soft but sideways. Mom when he wanted me to bend. Bree lifted her keys and spun the fob in her fingers. A silver Tesla logo flashed and disappeared. It is not about control. It is about respect. Michael pays almost everything now. Utilities, groceries, gas. It is overwhelming for him. We need a system. I let my gaze travel the room. The soft yellow walls I painted when Michael was 10 because he said the color felt like sunshine. The TV on the console where we watched old movies on Sunday nights until he fell asleep with his head on my shoulder. The braided rug I stitched corner by corner while waiting for the dryer to buzz. Respect, I said. The word tasted like rust. In my home. Bree laughed. Not a loud laugh. It came out like air leaking from a seam. Look around, Evelyn. Are you paying the power bill? The internet. Are you doing the Costco runs? We are keeping this place afloat. So yes, we are going to set a few rules. Michael spoke into the room without looking up. It would help if you texted before you come in. Like when we are busy, it is awkward. Text, I said, to walk into my living room. Bree moved closer. Vanilla from her perfume pressed at the back of my tongue. We want you comfortable, but there is a way to do this. A way that's healthier. I tightened my hand on the paper bag until it crackled. And what happens if I do not accept your rules? Michael's jaw flexed. He stared at his screen. Let's be realistic. I am your only son. The house will be mine anyway. My keys were cool in my pocket. The ridges bit into my palm when I closed my hand. The rain softened and rose again a new layer over the old like breath on glass. Dinner, I said and lifted the bag. We did not talk while we ate at the table. The candle on the mantel sputtered. The fridge motor clicked on and hummed. Bree scrolled with one finger and smiled to herself. Michael sent a voice note to someone in the other room. When he returned, he used his calm voice. Mom, can we have a real conversation? He sat on the edge of his chair the way he used to when he asked for money as a teenager. This isn't working. We are all stepping on each other. What do you want to say? I asked. Bree slid the iPad closer. A brochure peered out from beneath. Blue sky, a gazebo, the words Cedar Pines and Seraph Gold. We found a beautiful place. It is not a nursing home. It is a community. They have classes and walking trails and nurses on site if you need anything. No more stress. No more chores. You would make friends. I touched the edge of the brochure and felt the raised varnish in the letters. The paper was thick. The photo showed a woman with white hair laughing at a table with other white-haired women. The sky was too blue to be anywhere near Tacoma in November. I am 71, I said. I can boil water and pay a bill. Michael leaned forward. This house is big. The stairs are steep. We worry. What if you fall when we are not here? Bree nodded quickly. Exactly. And we can keep an eye on things here while you enjoy yourself there. It is a win for everyone. The excuses bloomed like mold on bread. Soft, quick, easy to deny until you tasted it. I cleared the plates and rinsed them. Hot water steamed the sink. The hydrangea outside shivered in wind I could not feel. In the window glass above the sink, my breath made a round bloom of fog. I wiped a circle like I had earlier. Another smear. The street light stretched thin and broke. I slept light. The rain beat on the roof in bursts and stopped as if someone held it by the throat and let go. At dawn, when the house was still, I listened to the pipes tick. Then I got up and made coffee the way I like it. 1 spoon of sugar, cream until the brown turned the color of new plywood. Michael knocked on my door and walked in with a tray. Toast, the coffee I had already made, a small dish of jam with a spoon laid across it. Good morning, he said. Morning. He set the tray on my blanket. He stood at the foot of the bed and rubbed his thumb over his knuckles. About last night. I watched him find a smile that used to come for free. It did not fit his face anymore. It felt borrowed. We love you, he said. We just want what is best. Cedar Pine seems perfect. Bree knows someone who can get you in fast. Fast, I repeated. It is not like that. It is nice. People our age put their parents there all the time. They have a chef. What would you do with the house, I asked, while I'm busy making friends with the chef? He lifted his hands and let them fall. Keep it up. The lawn, the gutters. Watch for packages. Make sure nothing happens. Nothing, I said. He smiled again. We would make it easy. Use your savings to cover the first months. If needed, we could take a small loan against the house short term, only until my bonus hits. The coffee on the tray was perfect. 1 spoon of sugar, cream until the brown turned right. He remembered the details. That made something ache low and deep. Your bonus, I said. Right. Michael, I said. He looked at the floor. I'm trying to be practical. You said the house would be yours. I mean, eventually. That is how it works. Does it? He sat down on the bed in the same place he used to sit when he was 10 and convinced a monster was under the closet door. He did not look at me. It would make things easier. In what way, I asked. For everyone. I tasted the coffee and set it back. My hand did not shake. The room was full of quiet. The hydrangea outside bent in the wind. In the glass, my face was a blur with a clear circle for one eye. Bree knocked once and came in without waiting. She wore a silk blouse and a blazer that never wrinkled. She smelled like vanilla and peppermint gum. I found a tour slot for Thursday, she said. Morning or afternoon. Morning is better. They serve brunch. The brochure, I said. Bring it here. She blinked, then smiled like a hostess. Of course. She laid the glossy on my lap. The gazebo, the blue sky, the gold serif again. Say it again, I told Michael. He frowned. Say what? What you said last night, about the house. He shifted as if the bed had moved under him. Let us be realistic. You do not have forever. I am your son. Things pass down. You are sure, I said. He opened his mouth, closed it, and looked at Bree. She tipped her chin once, a small nod. The vanilla in the air turned sour. Yes, he said quietly, I am sure. I curled my fingers around my keyring in my pocket. The brass teeth pressed into my palm, a neat line of tiny points. Outside, the truck on the hill beeped as it reversed into the drizzle. Beep, pause, beep, the sound climbing into the room and hanging there, patient and bright. Are you sure, I said again, and watched the way both of them held their breath at the same time. They did not breathe for a beat. Then they started talking at the same time. Bree about scheduling, Michael about safety. I nodded as if a draft had come through a crack somewhere and I was just catching it. By lunchtime, they were dressed and gone, the front door closing in a soft puff. The house settled, pipes sighed in the walls. The clock over the stove ticked like a small animal. I stood in the hall and listened to nothing. Then I walked to the side table where Michael had left his work bag. Leather. Heavy. I eased the zipper and let the mouth open quiet. Files, a laptop, a brochure slid its glossy edge out from a manila folder. Blue sky. A gazebo framed in white. Cedar pines in gold letters. A woman with white hair laughing at a table that held teacups that had never seen a stain. I set the brochure aside and tipped the folder so the rest of it spilled a little. A printout from North Harbor Realty, house photos, my house seen from a realtor camera that made rooms look wider than they were. At the bottom, a bold line that said, suggested quick sale price, and a number that felt both high and cheap at once. In the margin, someone had written the math in blue ink and then underlined twice. Down payment downtown, 8 to 10 years covered. There were notes in Bree's hand on the Cedar Pines printout. Basic plan and a number. Premium and a bigger number. A star beside resident deposit. A name circled. Denise. The paper smelled faintly of perfume. I did not shake. My phone camera chirped softly, the focus square jumping, then steady. The screen flickered each time the shutter tripped. Photo of the price page. Photo of the handwritten math. Photo of the brochure with the teacups. Photo of the appraisal with my living room made brighter than it could ever be in November. The zipper teeth met, and the bag was a rectangle again. On my way to the kitchen, I paused at the frame in the hall where Michael wore his Little League cap. I straightened it a half-inch. Outside, the rain had paused and left the street a dark mirror. I walked to the backyard. Mrs. Alvarez's hose was running on her side, and a slow glitter of water arced into her raised bed. She wore rubber clogs and a jacket with sunflowers on it. "You are out in this?" she said, smiling. I was about to come knock and ask for soup. "Soup I can do," I said. She shut the spigot, and the hose twitched and went still. We leaned on the shared fence the way we had for 20 years. The boards smelled like wet cedar. "Your hydrangea has gone pale," she said. "It was a richer blue in summer." "Maybe the soil changed," I said. She squinted at my kitchen windows. The glass was still streaked from the last storm. In the reflection, my own face blurred and sharpened with a passing cloud. "Evelyn," she said after a pause, "you have always kept your house like a ship." "I am still on it," I said. She made a little sound, thoughtful. "I tell my son every holiday, your mother gives you life and then a set of keys. You cannot take the keys from her. She decides who comes in and who sits down." She said it softly, like she did when we were gossiping about tomatoes, and not about anything that could break a heart. We ended up talking about tomatoes anyway. The rain started again in a fine mist that hung in the air and did not fall, and we said "see you later" and meant it. The First Cascadia Credit Union branch hummed. The lights were cool and the floor was clean enough to see a weak ghost of my shoes in it. The teller glanced up and then straightened. Recognition smoothing her expression. "Mrs. Hart," she said, "we have not seen you in a while." "I have been making coffee at home," I said. She laughed and then grew professional again. Forms slid under the glass. I signed where they asked and kept my pen when they forgot, and then gave it back, which made her smile. The vault door at the back looked like a safe in a movie, round and complicated. When they brought my old passbook out, the plastic cover was cloudy. I could see my name through it in the careful hand I used when I was 40 and practiced my letters across the ends of checks after midnight. We sat in a small office where they offered me a peppermint I did not take. The manager looked the way people look when they step into your kitchen and find you already stirring a pot. He used words like options and available and secure. He did not ask questions he did not need. I left with an envelope and a folder and a feeling like the old house had shifted on its foundation and set down on something level. The glass door breathed cool air on my cheeks when I pushed through it. Cars hissed along the wet street. A gull landed on the lamppost and shook its feathers like a dog. At home, the entry bowl held my keys where I had let them fall. I kept them in my pocket instead. I wiped one window in the hall with vinegar and water and watched the light change. That afternoon, Bree found reasons to narrate the world to me. How her friend's aunt loved her community and had a Pilates teacher who understood older bodies. How there had been a purse snatched 3 blocks away and a younger woman might have kept hold of the strap. How the stair runner upstairs was probably not safe. How she had read a blog about happiness after 70 that said routines were important. "Routine," I said. She looked pleased. "Yes, exactly." That night, I folded dish towels and listened to the sounds of the house. Michael laughed at something on his phone in the other room and then coughed as if he had been surprised by his own voice. The fridge cycled off. The wind made the hydrangea brush the siding with a sound like fabric. Morning came pale and thin. The rain had given up for now and left the sky the color of paper. I found Marcus Green by the name on a door, in a building I remembered from the year they stripped the brick and made it look new. His office smelled like coffee that had been brewed strong. A coat rack held a jacket with water still on the cuffs. The carpet gave under my shoes like bread. He stood when I came in and then hesitated as if he were seeing 2 people at once. The woman who handed him bowls of rice when he was 10 and the client who had signed the guest book at the desk. Evelyn, he said, and then he said Mrs. Hart, and then he smiled at his own confusion. Come sit. He poured coffee into a mug that had a tiny chip near the lip and nudged it across the desk toward me without looking at his hands. He had kept the habit of someone raised where not everything on the table could be expected. I will talk and you will listen, I said lightly. Then you will talk. He nodded. I told him the facts. No seasonings. Michael and Bree lived with me for 6 months. Bills, the talk in the living room, the tray the next morning, the exact phrase my son used because I wanted the weight of it in the air here where there was law on the shelves. I laid the printouts and the brochure and the photos on his desk in order. I did not need to say what it felt like. He could pick that up from the way I set the papers straight, even though they were already straight. He read. His eyes changed a little on the lines where the blue ink ran totals and years. He asked 2 questions. Was my name the only name on the deed? Were there any liens? The house is mine, I said. He looked up and met my face like a friend who had decided not to pretend in polite ways that hurt more than they helped. Then you will be fine. He turned the brochure with one finger and the gold letters caught the light. He tapped the realtor printout once, thinking, and a small smile moved the corner of his mouth that I knew from when he was a boy, and we solved a problem with a broom handle and a tape measure. He made a call from his desk and spoke in a voice I had not heard from him before, steady and trained the way you speak when you carry someone else's fragile thing through a crowd. When he hung up, he wrote names and times on a yellow pad and slid it so I could read without making it a performance. He did not talk about fairness. He talked about what could be done and who would do it. You saved me more than once, he said suddenly. And then he looked embarrassed as if he had said something off topic. You were a hungry boy, I said. I had rice. He blew out a breath like a laugh. On my way home, I bought apples from a woman whose stall had plastic clothespins clipped along the edge of the tent to keep the canvas from flapping. The air tasted like rain and diesel. A child in a red hat jumped in a shallow puddle, and his mother pretended to be angry but was not. The house smelled like the candle Bree had lit to make it seem like fall. Cinnamon that did not come from sticks. Michael's bag sat by the couch where it always sat like a dog waiting for a walk. I did not touch it. I made soup for Mrs. Alvarez and put it in a jar with a piece of tape for her name. I set aside a bowl for myself and ate it in the kitchen with the radio low. A man with a soft voice talked about tides and temperatures. I could hear my own spoon in the bowl. Later, Bree came by the doorway to the den and leaned in as if she did not want to interrupt the TV show, even though it was a rerun of a game I had already seen. You have that tour Thursday, she said. I will drive. We will see, I said. She smiled like a person tucking in a sheet. It will be fun. Michael hovered behind her hands in his pockets. He watched my face for a sign, and I did not move anything he could use. The evening stretched quiet again. I washed my cup and dried it. I laid a sticky note on the counter, a small bright square, and I wrote a time on it in pencil. The pencil lead looked silver when the kitchen light hit it. I pressed the note to the inside of a cabinet, where no one opened except me. The adhesive made a small sound. I closed the door and laid my palm against the wood. The wood was warmer than the glass. Outside somewhere, a truck shifted into reverse, and the beep rose up the hill. 3 soft calls, then the gears engaged, and the sound was gone. Monday morning came raw and bright. The rain had rinsed the street clean and left the sky the color of steel. I rubbed my forehead and told Michael I had not slept. He stood at the door and looked at me as if the right answer would appear if he waited. Bree checked her watch and said she would bring soup later. Their car pulled away with the sound of tires lifting water. The house exhaled. At 9, the bell rang. The sound traveled through the hallway in 3 calm notes. I opened the door to a woman in a navy raincoat with a leather portfolio tucked under her arm. Kathy Nguyen, she said with a steady smile, North Harbor Realty. She stepped in and the smell of wet wool and citrus followed. She wiped her shoes on the mat without being asked and glanced at the entry bowl where my keys usually lived. Today they were in my pocket. We walked the rooms. She moved like someone measuring a song slow and exact. The laser tape made a red dot on crown molding. The camera shutter made a small click that felt respectful. When she saw the photograph of Mark on the bookshelf, she paused without comment, then moved on. In the kitchen, she ran her hand along the counter edge and looked at the way the morning light lay across the sink. In the bedroom, she looked at the closet doors and the windows and the floorboards. She asked questions that had answers. How old is the roof? 7 years. Any settling in the back foundation. Only what Tacoma gives everyone. She wrote notes in a small book with a fine pen. The nib scratched a mild whisper into the paper. When she lifted her head, her smile had not changed, but a kind of brightness sat behind it. It is a good house, she said. Sound bones, good light. The neighborhood is in demand. I would set it between 500 and 540. We have a buyer with financing in place. If you prefer discretion, we can keep this off the listing sites. The number did not surprise me, the way she said good house did. We sat at the dining table where the leg had always wobbled. She set out a stack of pages that did not talk about hope. I printed my name where my name belonged and signed where a signature was asked for. Her pen slid toward me and back again, and she placed each paper in a folder as calm as a librarian. She did not push, she did not soften with words that would have made the room feel smaller. When we finished, she tucked the folder into her portfolio and rose. I will be in touch later today, she said. Thank you for letting me in. I walked her to the door. On the porch, the hydrangea leaned in a wind that had more bite than the air in the house. She glanced at it and then at me and nodded as if the plant were a person she respected. Her car beeped once. When she clicked it open, a clear sound that cut the morning clean. By noon, I was in a small office at Marcus's building with a view of a square of sky and a sliver of roofline. He read the documents Kathy had sent ahead. He pointed to a line and said here and there and here again in a voice that felt like a handrail. His shirt sleeves were rolled just to the elbow. He kept checking that the cap was on his pen before he set it down. You are the sole owner, he said, as if repeating a fact both of us had recited in our heads like a poem. The terms are clean, no surprises. We signed. He made a copy of my ID and gave it back with a small nod. He stood to walk me out and then stopped. Are you all right? He asked. I am awake, I said. He held my gaze for a breath and accepted that. The Maple and Pine building sat 3 blocks from the water brick, the color of Dry Cherry's windows that reflected the gray and made it look expensive. The lobby smelled like lemon and something else a cleaner that tried to be orange but was not. The manager wore a sweater that looked like it came from a store where they folded the sleeves with rulers. She showed me a 2-bedroom that faced Commencement Bay. The light came in thinner here, but it was honest. I opened the balcony door and the gulls called over the parking lot. Somewhere below, a truck door slammed and a man laughed. The kitchen had a stove with black grates and a refrigerator that did not hum. I opened a cupboard and placed my chipped mug on the second shelf. The words were turned toward the wall. I looked at the room until my eyes found the place where my rocking chair would go. The manager talked about quiet hours and parking and recycling. I nodded when I needed to. The lease pages felt crisp under my palm. Her pen left behind a small groove in the paper that I could feel with a fingertip. When she slid a small silver key across the counter to me, the edges were sharp where they had been cut. It bit the skin of my thumb in a way I liked. I dropped it into my pocket with my old keys and felt the weight settle. The afternoon slipped like a clean cloth across a table. Back at the house, the entry smelled like cinnamon again. Bree had left a candle simmering in a glass jar. The label told me the name of a season without naming the season. I turned it off. The kitchen window had a circle of clear glass where I had wiped it, and the rest was freckled with old rain. On the counter, the sticky note in the cabinet felt steady in the dark where no one saw it. Thursday moved through quietly. Michael mentioned cedar pines twice, the second time softer, when I did not feed the first mention. Bree packed a tote with a cardigan for me and a folded brochure in case I changed my mind in the parking lot. She left it on a chair, I left it on a chair. Friday dawned pale, the kind of light that slips around curtains. At 10, a truck backed into the alley behind the house, and the beeper announced every inch like a polite stranger. 3 men in work boots came to the door. One wore a cap with a faded baseball team and a name on his shirt that read Justin. He introduced the others and kept his voice low even when he called instructions. I liked him without having to. Show me what goes, he said. I had marked what mattered. Red tape on picture frames on the sewing machine Mark gave me when the children were small on the legs of the rocking chair that had earned the right to squeak. The box of letters, the album with plastic sleeves, the bowl I used for bread dough. My clothes, my books, the recipes in my mother's handwriting that had oil in the corner from a Christmas 10 years ago. The rest could sit like it was waiting and never be called on again. They wrapped the machine in blankets and taped the blankets with a quick practice twist. They nested the frames between sheets of cardboard that had a smell like dry paperbacks. They carried out the chair between them like someone sleeping. The hallway filled and emptied. The house felt bigger as they worked. The old front door leaned back on its hinges, and the air tasted like November. Justin pointed at the sofa. "This one." "No," I said. "It stays." He nodded and did not ask why. He set a small cardboard box near the entry table and wrote kitchen with a black marker, even though it held not one thing from the kitchen. The marker squeaked. The floorboards answered the weight of the men, and the weight went away down the steps. In 3.5 hours, the truck was full in a way that looked light. Justin stood in the entry and wiped his hands on the back of his pants. "Anything else," he said. I looked once around the room. The walls kept their color in a kind of tired dignity. The photograph of Michael in his Little League cap was gone, the brighter square where it had hung a pale ghost on the paint. The table with the wobbly leg stood with the leg steady, like it felt reliable now that fewer eyes were on it. I slid my fingers into my pocket and closed my hand around the ring of keys. Brass on brass. "That is it," I said. They left and the house listened to itself. I walked out and locked the door and put the keys back in my pocket. In the truck, Justin lifted his hand to me in a small wave. The beeper made its careful notes, and then the truck found its gear and the sound disappeared into the street. The Maple and Pine apartment took the boxes and held them without complaint. The movers set the chair where my eyes had chosen. They set the sewing machine near the window. The men stepped back and waited for me to decide about small distances, and then they moved things 2 inches because I asked. They left with a receipt and a promise that they would send the invoice by email. The door shut with a clean click. The silence here was different. It was ready. At 4, I drove back to the house with 2 envelopes in my bag and a copy of a contract in a folder that had a weight that did not match its thickness. The hydrangea in the yard had caught a break in the wind and held still. The living room smelled like wood and old laundry. The table waited. I sat and wrote the first letter in my careful hand. "Dear Michael," I kept the sentences short and the facts on their feet. "By the time you read this, I will not be here. I moved into a new apartment. The house has been sold. The buyers take possession on Monday. The money is in my account. The keys are on the table." I did not write more than that. I did not write less. The second letter I addressed to Bree. "Dear Bree, your plan was thoughtful. You picked the wrong woman. The house will not be your option." I kept it plain and let the paper hold my tone. I set both envelopes side by side. I placed the keys on top so the weight of the brass pressed the paper and made a shadow. On the chair, I left the cedar pines brochure that had sat in her tote. I wrote on a small sticky note and stuck it to the glossy cover, in case this is helpful for you. The late light tilted through the window and found the circle I had wiped in the glass. Dust motes swam in it. I stood and looked once at the line of photographs that were no longer there. The wall looked like a mouth that had lost teeth. Outside, the air had a bite that made my eyelids feel thin. I walked to my car and did not look back until I was in the seat with the door closed. The house sat without me like a thing that had remembered how to be a shape. I drove away and did not see a person on the sidewalk. Only a dog with a bandana and a child in a striped hat. By 5:30, my phone rang in the new apartment and lit the coffee table with Michael's name. I let it ring. It rang again. I picked up on the 3rd try. His breath rushed into the room ahead of his words. "Where are you?" he said. "At home," I said. "Your home is here." "My home is where I am." He swallowed and I could hear the sound of his mouth turning dry. "There is a letter. What is this? You cannot sell this house." "I sold this house," I said. "The contract is signed. The buyers take possession Monday. The funds are cleared." "You cannot do this to us," he said. "You cannot leave us like this. We have nowhere." "You told me it would belong to you one day," I said. "That is not today." In the background, Bree's voice came sharp, too close to the phone. "Get the address. We will make her fix it." "You do not know my address," I said. "You will not." Michael's voice cracked in a way that belonged to a younger version of him and to a different conversation. "Mom, please, can we talk?" "We are." The line carried his breathing and nothing else. Then a small click and silence. The doorbell rang in 3 neat notes. I did not move. I watched the light from the hallway make a thin bar on the floor. It stayed. The kettle on the stove began to mutter. I turned the flame low. I set my phone on the counter and turned it face down. I took my new key from my pocket and laid it in my palm. The edges were clean. I closed my fingers over the metal and felt it warm. Monday. The phone rang before I finished my tea. The screen showed Kathy's name. Her voice carried the brisk rhythm of someone who had already crossed off 3 items on a list. Walkthrough is complete, she said. They love the light. There was a couple at the door when we arrived. They said it was their house. The buyers were polite. It got tense. I told them I would call the police if they did not leave. They left. I let the steam lift and fade from my cup. Thank you, I said. Kathy's tone softened. You kept this place well. They will take care of it. When the call ended, the apartment felt broader than it had the night before. The window glass was clean and the bay threw back a flat gray that looked honest. I turned the kettle off and listened to the silence settle. By noon, a new number flashed. The voice introduced itself as Mr. Munoz's attorney. He had the practiced warmth of someone who says the same opening 100 times a week. I represent your son, he said. He is concerned about the disposition of the family residence. He believes the sale occurred without appropriate consent from the legitimate heir. The house was in my name, I said. Yes, he said. But the sentimental value to family is significant, and we feel there is a strong argument to contest the transaction on those grounds and to seek an injunction. The deed lists one owner, I said. Sentiment does not load a title. There is no injunction. I have counsel. A small pause. Paper moved under his hand. We will be in touch, he said, still smooth but thinner. I called Marcus. He picked up on the second ring. Munoz, I said. He exhaled a sound that carried a smile. A call to impress. It will not go anywhere. You are clean. If they file, we file back and ask for costs. Eat something good and open a window. I opened the window 2 inches. The cold came in sharp. The gulls cried over the parking lot like they were laughing at a joke no one told. In the afternoon, I walked to the park above the water. The grass held beads of rain that clung to my shoes. A thin wind tugged at the leaves left on the maples. Mrs. Alvarez waved from a bench where a pigeon tribe patrolled. She patted the wood beside her and I sat. She had a paper bag of stale bread. She split a slice and the pigeons came in a spill, heads bobbing a mess of gray and oil-sheen necks. The birds made a sound like soft paper being wrinkled. The salt smell from the bay pushed through the trees. My son says I should feed seeds, she said. Bread makes them fat. I told him I am not raising them for the draft. We watched the birds scatter and reform. A boy in a red jacket ran along the path and his mother did not yell. The clouds had pulled thin like cotton. Someone told me they showed up at the house, she said, eyes on the birds. The new owners were kind, I said. No one bled. She nodded. You ever notice the pigeons always know where home is and never ask permission to land? She tore another piece and held it out flat on her palm until the boldest bird took it. We did not speak for a while. The wind worked a thread loose on my sleeve. I pushed it back into place and tucked it. She looked at my hands and then at my face. Her mouth bent into a line that belonged to a friend, not a judge. You look rested, she said. I slept, I said. Back at Maple and Pine, the hallway smelled faintly of someone's soup. In the elevator, a woman with white hair held a small dog that seemed to think it was a person. The dog looked at me with serious eyes and then at the glowing numbers above the door. When I got to my floor, the light through the window at the end of the hall turned the carpet a shade lighter. On the balcony, I set a clay pot on a saucer and poured soil from a bag I had carried up the stairs myself. The dirt was dark and smelled like rain and something green. My hand sank in. The grit got under my nails. I pressed a hydrangea start into the center with 2 fingers and firmed the soil around it. Water burbled from the can and the leaves trembled. The little plant sat quiet as if it were listening to the bay. I looked at the key on the table and the chipped mug beside it. I washed my hands in the sink and watched the water run clear. The days unfolded like cloth folded and put away and taken out again. Light through blinds, the call of gulls, the hum of a neighbor's vacuum, and the quiet when it clicked off. A woman at the front desk learned my name and used it. I walked the path by the water where the wind pulled tears from my eyes, even when I was not thinking sad thoughts. I stood in the art room at the community center and watched a man in a paint-splattered apron show us how to mix a blue that looked like morning if morning were a bowl. The news on the radio talked about tides and a storm down the coast. I wrote Lena a postcard with a picture of a ferry and licked the stamp. 6 months turned without asking permission. The hydrangea on my balcony took the light it was given and remade it. The blooms went from green to a pale blue with faint veins, then deeper. The leaves held a gloss that looked like someone had polished them, but no one had. On a Sunday, I cleaned the glass door with vinegar, and the bay stepped into the room for a full minute. The phone rang on a morning with sky the color of chalk. Michael's name. I let it ring once and then picked up. Mom, he said. The word carried gravel. Can I talk to you? We are talking, I said. In person, he said, and the breath caught on the last sound. There was a scrape as if he had sat down somewhere and the chair did not agree with the floor. Bree is gone, he said. She left in March. She met someone and left. I lost my job in April. I am at my cousin's. I cannot seem to put anything back. I was wrong. The words arrived like a stack of plates, not loud, just a little heavy. I waited. The gulls outside called, and the window gave a soft thrum to a truck passing below. I was cruel to you, he said. I made what I wanted look like concern. I said things I should not have said. I let her say worse. I thought comfort was something owed. I am sorry. There it was. No decoration. I held the line against my ear. The apartment smelled like coffee and soap. Across the room, my rocking chair held a folded blanket that had belonged to Mark. I hear you, I said. I do not expect you to fix anything, he said quickly. I do not expect you to forgive me. I just needed to say it. I stood by the window, my hand flat on the cool glass. In the reflection, my face was soft and then clear when a cloud moved. I forgive you, I said. Forgiving is not the same as forgetting. It is not a permission slip. I know, he said, and I believed him because the way he said it had no angle in it. We do not go back, I said. If we talk like two people who stand on their own feet. His breath steadied. Yes. We meet in public, I said. We keep it simple. Tell me where, he said. I said the name of a cafe in a day. He repeated it. His voice had a careful shape, like he was touching a fragile thing. When I hung up, my palm left a print on the window that faded while I stood there. The bay kept its gray. The plant on the balcony had turned one blossom a shade bluer than the rest, as if it had found some private mix in the soil. I took the key from the dish and turned it once in my hand. The cut edges tapped against my ring and made a small, clean sound. Anchor and Bean held the warmth of milk steam and roasted beans. The door chimed and shut out a slice of gray. The windows carried a skin of fog where breath met glass. Tables were small and close. A man in a knit hat read a paper. A woman wrote in a notebook with a pen that scratched softly. I chose a seat near the window and set my palms on the cup to feel the heat move into my fingers. Michael came in with his shoulders tight like someone expecting weather. He looked thinner. His coat had a shine at the cuffs that comes from use. He saw me, paused, then walked over and stopped with care as if the floor had rules. He kept his phone in his pocket. He did not reach for me. His eyes were red in the corners. Hi, Mom, he said. Hello, Michael. He nodded toward the counter. I will get a coffee. He returned with a small cup and a glass of water. He set both down. He did not look at the door. He did not look at the ceiling. He looked at the table and at my face, and back again, steady and then unsure, like he was learning emotion his body used to know. Thank you for meeting me, he said. Sit, I said. He sat. He wrapped both hands around the cup and let the heat soak in before he tried a sip. The espresso hit him and he blinked once. The room hummed lightly. The grinder started in the back and then stopped. Someone laughed and the sound fell like a coin in a pocket. I am sorry, he said again, quieter. I said it on the phone. I will say it as many times as you need. I heard you. He nodded. I can say what I did. I made the house into a thing to win. I made money into a reason for cruelty. I let Bree talk to you like a stranger. I talked to you like a stranger. I was wrong. He did not add a because. He did not add a but. He watched me as if the space between us were a fragile bridge and we should cross it without jumping. You are not here for money, I said. He shook his head fast. No, you are not here to ask for my keys. He looked at my bag and then away. No, you are here to sit and be my son, I said. He swallowed and the line of his throat worked. If you will have me. As a person who pays his own bills. As a person who does not keep score with his mother. Outside, a delivery truck eased back from the curb. The beep rose and dropped clean and slow. The driver waved at a cyclist who waved back with 2 fingers and a smile that showed teeth. The smell of bread drifted from somewhere and curled under the coffee. Tell me about your days, I said. Not all of them. Just today. He exhaled short and surprised as if he had been holding a breath he forgot about. I slept on a couch that is longer than the last one. I woke before my alarm. I made the bed even though it is a couch. I sent 2 applications. I walked here. I did not listen to music. I wanted to hear the street. I am trying to pay attention now. He lifted the cup again and finished it. He put the empty down and did not push it away, as if not to make a show of being done. Good, I said. We let a minute stretch. We did not hurry to fill it. The barista pulled a shot and the machine hissed. The fog on the window cleared in a small oval where the heat found it. The glass showed my face and his and the street over our shoulders, a double picture that steadied when the air shifted. "I do not know your new address," he said. "I will not ask." "You will not come without being asked," I said. "I will not," he said. "You will not ask me for access," I said. "You will not ask for a key. You will text before you call. You will keep our talks in public until we decide otherwise." He nodded each time. He did not write anything down. The rules were air between us. He held them that way. "I can buy my own lunch," he said. "I brought cash. You can buy your own lunch. Today I'm already paid for." He smiled the small, real smile that used to arrive at the end of a good day when he was a boy. Not the wide grin, the one that lived close to the eyes. We talked about a few things with no weight. Weather. The market down the street that sells apples that taste like water and sugar at once. He told me about a book someone recommended that he had not read yet. He did not ask me what to do about finding work. I did not tell him. He did not try to make a promise he could not keep. We did not try to make one conversation hold the shape of years. When the cups were empty, he stood and took his. He bussed our table without announcing it. He put on his coat and did not rush the sleeves. At the door, he looked back the way he used to look back when he was small and wanted to make sure I was coming. I lifted my hand. He lifted his and left. The room settled around his absence without closing. I sat another minute and watched the panes clear and fog again where someone laughed and leaned in. The truck outside was gone. The street held a damp shine. I stepped into the cold and let it bite my cheeks. The florist on the corner had buckets out under a strip of plastic. Hydrangeas in pots sat close, leaves wide and glossy, a few blooms tipped with that in-between color that is not quite blue and not quite green. I lifted one and the leaves brushed my wrist cool and soft. The clerk wrapped the pot in brown paper that whispered when she turned it and tied it with string that left a crease on my thumb. Back at Maple and Pine, the hallway carpet muted my steps. My door opened with a clean click when the new key turned. The apartment pulled me in with the mild scent of soap and the hint of coffee still in the air from the morning. I set the hydrangea on the balcony table and pressed the soil with my fingers. The plant settled as if it had been waiting. The bay beyond held a flat gray that made the leaves seem greener. On the counter, my chipped mug sat upside down on a folded towel. I turned it over and put it on the second shelf, words to the wall. In the small dish by the door, my key and its twin lay side by side. I did not pick them up. I set the florist string there with them. The knot looked simple and neat, nothing tricky about it. I washed my hands and watched the water take the dirt and leave my skin. The phone buzzed once and lit the table. A message from Michael. "Thank you for coffee. I have an interview on Tuesday morning. I thought you would like to know." I read it and let the light go out. I put the phone face down. The room held quiet. The hydrangea's leaves caught a flick of light and kept it. The glass of the balcony door showed a clear circle where my hand had wiped it last week. The circle fit the morning and the afternoon, and this hour a small window inside a window. I stood there, palms warm from the cup, and watched the color in the petals deepen one shade. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.